Srimad Bhagavatam as it is, 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga, text number 17. Yuktahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta svapna vabodasya, yoga bhavati dukkhaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Purport. Extravagance in the matter of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, which are demands of the body, can block advancement in the practice of yoga. As far as eating is concerned, it can be regulated only when one is practiced to take and accept prasadam, sanctified food. Lord Krishna is offered according to Bhagavad-Gita 9.26 vegetables, flowers, fruits, grains, milk, etc. In this way, a person in Krishna consciousness becomes automatically trained not to accept food not meant for human consumption, or not in the category of goodness. As far as sleeping is concerned, a Krishna conscious person is always alert in the discharge of his duties in Krishna consciousness, and therefore any unnecessary time spent sleeping is considered a great loss. Avyarta kalatvam, a Krishna conscious person cannot bear to pass a minute of his life without being engaged in the service of the Lord. Therefore his sleeping is kept to a minimum. His ideal in this respect is Srila Rupa Goswami, who was always engaged in the service of Krishna and could not sleep more than 2 hours a day, and sometimes not even that. Thakur Haridas would not even accept prasadam nor even sleep for a moment without finishing his daily routine of chanting with his beads 300,000 names. As far as work is concerned, a Krishna conscious person doesn't do anything which is not connected with Krishna's interest. And thus his work is always regulated and is untainted by sense gratification. Since there is no question of sense gratification, there is no material leisure for a person in Krishna consciousness. And because he is regulated in all his work, speech, sleep, wakefulness, and all other bodily activities, there is no material misery for him. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritamina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanyamanovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Siveti Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vacharam pangum langyate girim yat kripadamam vande Sri Guru Dinotharanam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitaneshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So here Krishna is explaining Dhyana Yoga, the process of the mystic yoga, to Arjuna, and he's explaining how does a yogi go about his daily activities. Because Arjuna wanted to know, how does he sleep? How does he walk? How does he talk? What does he do? What does he not do? Be specific. If you ask a general question, you get a general answer. If you ask a specific question, you get a specific answer. So, here, Krishna is explaining these things. In the previous verse, he was saying that one cannot become a yogi if one eats too much or too little, sleeps too much, or does not sleep enough. And Prabhupada explains in the purport, what does that mean? We have a mature body and we need to sustain it by proper food and proper rest. Now in today's verse, in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about Rupa Goswami, who would sleep 2 hours. And we know Raghunath Das Goswami was taking little buttermilk. But he also said, if you try to imitate, you will die. So we cannot imitate these great souls. For everything, we have to find what is my level. Just like the 4 regulative principles, it's very clear. But very often when people come and they're new to Krishna consciousness, they cannot immediately in the first moment get to that level. So it's a succession. They have to get there. And we have to encourage them like that. And how do you encourage? Not by discouraging. Not by saying this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. But by encouraging the positive. Just like when you're parents and you have children, if you tell the kid, don't do this, sit down, be quiet. Will it work? Doesn't work. Because the kid naturally wants to be active, wants to do so many things. It will work for 10 seconds, and then again, starts to do his thing. But if you tell the kid, go do this, go do that, go do that, then yes, positive engagement. Huh? If you want to get, you can do reverse psychology. Huh? You want the kid to sit down, so you say, go outside and play. Kid says, no, I'll stay here. Like that. Reverse psychology. Anyway, the point is, emphasize the positive. Because nobody likes that you focus on the negative. Because already there's so much negative in this world. And we're faced with enough negativity. We don't need more of it. Even in Krishna consciousness, we see sometimes devotees have this tendency of friendly fire. You know what friendly fire means? On the battlefield, when people get confused, they misunderstand who is friends and enemies, so they start shooting their own people. Because they think, oh, he's the enemy. But actually he is not an enemy, he's your own man. But because you have jaded vision, you mistake him to be an enemy. Why does this tendency arise? Because we're not satisfied in our own bhajan. We're not really content in our own practice. And thus, we try to find fault with others. And where do we find fault? Well, those who are closest, nearest to us, the devotees, we find fault with them. But that is very risky business, because very easy to make offenses. So there is always a minimal standard and an ideal standard. What is the minimum standard? The minimum standard is you only eat vegetarian food. That is human life. But then, if it's offered to Krishna, then that's better. Because then it's prasadam, you can get elevated, you can get purified by that. But the minimum is okay. People should turn vegetarian. And then, if they can get elevated to becoming prasadarian, to accept prasadam, that is ideal. But there's the minimum and the ideal. The same way, the minimum for the human life is no sex outside of marriage. That's the minimum. But the ideal is only sex for procreation. But most of the people, even in our own movement, they will be somewhere between the minimum and the ideal. And that is a fact. And we should encourage them to move towards the ideal. But how do we do that? By giving positive engagement, by cultivating the higher taste of Krishna consciousness. Vishaya vinivartante nirahasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. If you don't have higher taste, you can't give up lower taste. Because taste must be there. You got to have some taste. If there's no taste, then it's very bad. It's very bad. Just like if you come from Mangalartik and you get the special perfume which is being offered to the Lord, then that is very nice. Otherwise you come during the day and you only smell the chemical from the floor. You think, But some taste has to be there. Otherwise life is boring. So people are doing dangerous things, foolish things, despicable things, just because they have no other alternative. They think there is no other tastes in this world. So it is the duty of the devotees to make Krishna consciousness attractive and accessible so that the people can appreciate it. By giving them prasadam, by giving them the holy name, by giving them association, by giving them this philosophy of Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And then all of a sudden people will realize, oh yeah, actually, this is more meaningful. This is a better type of engagement. So, Krishna is speaking about regulation, to be regulated. What is the main topic of the Bhagavad-Gita? The most emphasized.
being equipoised.
Equipoised, balanced, regulated. A yogi doesn't do too much, doesn't do too little. This is the main message. It comes up all throughout the Gita. Huh? Yes, full surrender is also mentioned. Yes, a bunch of other things are also mentioned. But that the topic that is the most emphasized, the most stressed, is that you should be balanced. And balanced means for different people different things. It means not too much and not too little. Now that's varying according to the personality, the time, place, and the circumstances. So regulation is important. And extravagance should be avoided. Like nowadays, there's so many advertisements to eat all different kinds of abominable things. Extravagance. Oh, get this from Southeast Asia, get this from South America, this from Japan, this from here, from there. It's a globalized world. So, because of transportation, people think, oh, I want to taste this, what I have not tasted yet. But that is a very foolish idea. Because after all, best for the body is what is grown in the country, in the climate, in the place where you reside. And to live a simple life means to accept fruits, flowers, vegetables, milk products, grains, which have been offered to the Lord, and then you partake in prasadam, as much as is required. And there should not be too much spices or too little. There should not be too much oil or too little. Like last few days was oil attack. So one should balance things. Otherwise you need a new oil filter every month or so. One should be balanced. Otherwise when things go out of balance, what happens? You suffer. Like Prabhupada says here at the end of the purport, a person who is regulated, for such a person, there is no material misery. Because if you regulate yourself through this yoga process, you can reduce the material misery. Now there will still be suffering. Because birth, old age, disease and death is a fact. It's not a fiction, it's a fact. How can you suffer without misery? How is it possible? Can somebody explain? Prabhupada says here at the end of the purport, there is no material misery for him. But birth, old age, disease and death is a fact for everybody who has taken his birth here in this world. So how can you suffer without misery? Suffering is mandatory. Misery is optional. When does misery get created? Who wants to explain?
Oh, in the mind.
Misery is in the mind. And it happens when?
Happens when no desires are not fulfilled.
When you're attached to something and you don't get your way. Like you thought yesterday was a beautiful day. And you thought, finally. Summer has come, right? And summer went. Summer was on a Monday this year. And now it's Tuesday. And it's again winter. So that creates misery in the mind. Because you already planned, oh, I want to go out, I want to enjoy myself, I want to wear my t-shirt, I want to run around like a monkey. And then it doesn't work like that. And then misery gets created in the mind. Now you go out and it rains and it's cold and it's like most of the other 365 days in Finland. And it's distress, there's some suffering there, but it's not misery. Misery only gets generated when our mind becomes attached. And we think, it's got to be like this, it's got to be like that. There is no such thing as bad weather. There is only inadequate clothing. You have to just dress properly to the occasion. And then it's quite normal, right? You can handle it. But if your mind tells you, today has to be a beautiful day, that will be a miserable state of affair. And it is created in the mind. The body can tolerate a lot of hot, heat, a lot of cold, a lot of wet. The body is quite tolerant. It's the mind that's the problem. It's the mind that creates this anxiety. That's why it's so important that we condition our mind with Krishna consciousness. You see, if something can be conditioned in one way, it can also be conditioned in another way. Like people have air conditioning, so they become conditioned to have. Like I arrived at the airport, and the person who picked me up immediately put the air conditioning, but it was so strong, ice cubes were coming out, so I felt very uncomfortable. So we get conditioned by all these different types of conditioners. So one could speak for hours about how to regulate these demands of the body, but Krishna sums it up. Just be regulated. Find your balance. What works for you? Different constitutions. Ayurveda teaches us different types of bodies, different types of needs, different types of what is good and what doesn't work. So, figure out what works for you and stick to it. But basically, a devotee only accepts the minimum necessity of life, Hare Krishna, welcome, and does not unnecessarily waste time. People are using so much of their energy, so much of their effort, just to increase the bodily demands of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Practically speaking. All day long, running around. Oh, how can I get better house? How can I get better food? How can I get better shelter? Etc., etc. But that is not human life. That is animal life. That is animal existence. So we should live a simple life. Because then the mind becomes peaceful. And you gain time and energy to focus on spiritual practice, on the real business of the human form of life. Avyarta kalatvat. A person in Krishna consciousness does not want to bear to pass a minute of his life without being engaged in the service of the Lord. Nowadays, people cannot bear 1 second to be without Wi-Fi. Came out of the place we went to visit, and there was 3 teenage girls. They were about 13 years old, and they were sitting on the bench, and they were not talking to each other. They were each working their phones. Have you ever wondered? It's so-called one of the greatest inventions of modern kind, modern technology. But it has created so much distress and so much segregation, so much separation between people. What are you? Are you an iPhone or are you a Samsung? What are you? Are you an Android or are you a this or are you a that? Everybody is busy hacking away on their phones. People don't talk to each other anymore. Even in the same company, even in the same household, people don't get up and walk over to the other office desk, right, to talk to each other. They send message like that. So there's a breakdown in human relations. And because of that, because there's a breakdown in communication, there's a breakdown in trust. One basically doesn't trust anybody. Because if you don't work with people, you don't deem them trustworthy. Everybody just becomes a number. I was in a very big place, without mentioning countries or names, and we were taking lunch together, 7 or 8 of us, and I looked up, and it's the Brahmachari ashram, and 6 of them were writing SMS messages with one hand while they were eating. And I felt something's wrong here. We're taking prasadam, we're honoring the Lord's mercy in the form of Bhagavad Prasadam. We should not be bothered with electronics right now. Now I know they were not texting to their girlfriends, they were engaged in preaching, they were doing meaningful things, but still it's the wrong place and time for this type of activity. But I didn't say anything, because when you're a guest, you're supposed to shut up and smile and say thank you. You're very nice. Huh? That's what guests do. But still, I felt upset. Why? Because I myself am continuously distracted by so many externals that are interfering with my bhakti, with my devotion. We're continuously bombarded by the weapons of mass distraction. So Bhagavad-Gita teaches us how to be focused. That is the process of dhyana yoga. Tatkatena manasa pashyantiyam yogina. This whole process of yam, niyam, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyan, samadhi. We want samadhi. We want full ecstasy, full absorption in Krishna. But how can we attain that? Yama, niyama. What to do and what not to do. Things that are favorable and things that are actually harmful and obstructive. But people don't know these things. Pavrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasura na shaucham na pichataro na satyam teshu vidyate. They take everything as the opposite. They do everything wrong. There's no comprehension of what's cleanliness and what's beneficial. Huh? So, we need guidance. And guidance comes through Shastra. Shastra Chakshush. We see through the eyes of the scriptures. In this world, people are guided by so many other types of agents. Huh? Thank you. They read all different types of newspapers, magazines, and whatever ideas are in there, people subscribe to them. Just like you go to India now, everybody's in this jogging craze. Which part of India are you from? Which city? Chennai. Morning time, people put on sneakers and go out walking or running, right? You see, happens everywhere, especially in the big cities. Not countryside, because countryside people are working the fields. There's enough exercise. They don't need to waste their time with walking. Walking is actually good, but the running thing is not good at all. Any doctor will tell you that the running thing is the worst thing you can do for your joints, for your knees, for your feet, for your back. Not very good. Walking is good, but running is not good. But because one wants to be modernized, so one puts up, with all this nonsense. Let's put on nice sneakers and nice shirt and nice pant and run out like everybody else and show off, oh, I'm very sporty, I'm very fashionable kind of a person. But we should not subscribe to all these things. Yes, in the West this was in the fashion in the 1980s. But now it's 2014 and doctors have realized a thing or two. So now they propound something new. Whatever it is that they want to market gets promoted. Basically it's economic interest. But Bhagavad-Gita is not subscribing to this type of marketing strategy. But it is focusing on what is actually meaningful. What is actually giving solace. What is actually giving proper direction for the living entity. Just like for you who just came late, I'll read the verse again. This is 6th chapter Bhagavad-Gita, text number 18, Dhyana Yoga. Krishna is saying, a person who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Would you like to mitigate all material pains? Would you like to get free from pain? I think that would be very nice, isn't it? That's what everybody tries. I try to reduce pain because then my happiness will increase, my quality of life will increase. But nowadays people are unregulated in eating. Eating takes place all the time, continuously. I was taking a bus from Bologna, Italy to Slovenia, Ljubljana, and it was about a 7-hour bus ride. And our bus drivers were from Bulgaria, from Sofia. And their names were Jagai and Madai. And continuously they were eating. They were chewing sunflower seeds. They had a big pile, mountain, next to where they were driving. And they would take and chew on them and then take out the shell and throw it and take the next one. And they were so expert that they could drive with one hand, and with the other hand they would smoke and make coffee and chew sunflower seeds. All in one. Now they were very good drivers. I did not object to their driving. But continuously they were chewing on something. And you can see people have to chew chewing gums, fingernails, cigarettes. Always chewing, pencils. Mobile phones, something chewing. Like little babies, anything they can grab, they will stick it in their mouth. So, and what happens? It creates suffering, pain. So a devotee knows, I'll take Krishna Prasad. Once, twice, 3 times, whatever you need, whatever is required for you. Sleeping. Sleeping is considered the most precious, the most treasured, the most adorable activity. There is entire malls which sell you soft beds and nice cushions and furniture and whatever goes along with it. Why? Because sleeping has such a priority on people's minds. But what do you do when you sleep? You don't do anything. It's time wasted. You just lie there. And for the most part, you dream things that are quite pointless and often quite disturbing, to say the least. So why is this sleeping business so considered so wonderful? If sleeping would be top, then the bear should be our acharya. He should be our, Medvedev. The bear should be our symbol of cherished goal, because he goes to the cave and for months he can sleep. So sleeping is basically a waste of time. The body needs some time to regenerate, to recuperate, to get strength and energy again. But if we become regulated, then we can reduce the time of sleeping. If you go to bed around 9 o'clock, you can manage your 6 hours of sleep. That means you get up at 3 o'clock. Now I know that sounds quite frightening and quite spectacular for some of you. But imagine all the good books you want to read, all the meditation and chanting you want to do, which you don't find any time for. Because you get up at 6 or 6:30, and then you get dressed and you go for a job. And your life is practically miserable. You just always a step behind the game, always out of breath, always trying to catch up. But if I would give you 3 extra hours in your day, would you like that? Would you like 3 extra hours? Would you know what to do with it? It'd be pretty good, wouldn't it? So you just take your alarm clock and you set it to 3 o'clock. There is your extra 3 hours. Ta-da! And that's a lot of time. Now, okay, it means you cannot go out and eat dinner at 10:30 at night. It means you can't watch television till 1 o'clock in the morning. It means you go and you retire basically at 8 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock you're asleep. No electronics, no interference, only bhajan, some chanting, something light, and then at 9 you're down and gone, out. Do you notice when you try to go to sleep after 10, how difficult it is to fall asleep? How long it takes you to actually fall asleep? So, because we're not taking guidance, we're suffering. Then recreation, everybody needs some recreation. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. If you only work, at one time you break. Every machine needs to rest sometimes. This body is a yantra, is a machine. Sometimes it needs to rest. But now we have created, with our innovative advancement of society, that you can work 2 jobs, you can work 3 jobs, you can work 14 hours, because we don't pay you by the hour, we hire you by the project. which is another way of saying you're a slave, you belong to us. Okay, we'll have your cafeteria. I know Chennai, many people in South working in call centers. Pune also. They make 50, 60,000 rupees, but they have to work 12, 14-hour shifts. Sometimes 7 days a week. There's a cafeteria which gives free food. And people think, oh, very nice, free food. But what's the price? You're getting food worth 100, 200 rupees, but you are working worse than a dog, worse than an ass. That's not a human existence. Formerly, one person in a family would work and earn, and everybody would live happily with that one salary income. But nowadays, husband's working, wife is working, grandparents are working, uncle is working, children are working, the dog is working, everybody's got a job. Is that advancement? For what? So we have 3 cars in front of the house? That's not advancement. That's regression. We're going back. We're not making advancement. And we have to be regulated in our work. Regulation. Then we can mitigate the material pains. This is the message of the Bhagavad-Gita. This is the practice of the yoga system. Otherwise, there will be misery. There will be suffering. Now, the more we advance spiritually, the more we can reduce our eating, sleeping, and all these other types of activities. Why? Because when you take joy, when you take pleasure in your spiritual practice by worshipping Krishna, your happiness, your level of contentment becomes so high that your material needs become very minimal. And they're very easily to be satisfied. Formerly, people had great character and their needs were minimal. Nowadays, the character is low, but the needs are very high. Very high. And what happens? It creates a big discrepancy. There's a big gap between reality and the expectation. And what happens when there is a big gap? Tension. Pull. Tension. It gets pulled in 2 different ways. So, people have very high expectations, but the reality may not be always conducive to that. So, a devotee of Krishna is actually a realist, is actually understanding what is proper, what is conducive, what is good for my spiritual advancement. And thus, he or she only accepts what is required to keep body and soul in a healthy state. And the extra time is used for devotional service. Have you ever heard this mantra? I don't have any time. People say, I don't have any time, I just don't have any time, I just don't find any time for myself. Why? Because we're not regulated and we don't set our priorities properly. So much wasting of time. People check messages. It's said that 70% of the people check their SMS messages before even heading to the bathroom in the morning. That's a miserable life. So, you want to increase your quality of life? Welcome to the Krishna Consciousness Movement. We'll give you a few little tricks and tips of how to do that. No electronics before breakfast. Did you know that? Okay, your alarm clock might be an exception to that. But besides that, no checking of email or SMS before breakfast. Don't worry, your messages will still be there. In fact, there will be more messages. But if you get up and you check messages and then you try to do sadhana, you try to do chanting and yoga meditation, it doesn't work. Because the mind already is busy. Oh, this one wrote this one wants that, I need to plan this, I need to do that. And it ruins your whole day. Now this is not mandatory. It's optional. We're just giving you some advice here from personal experience. Try it out. No electronics before breakfast, which means nothing before I hit the office or before 9 o'clock. Before that is quality time for my spiritual practice. Your quality of life will increase. We already talked about the late night, going out, late night dinners, eating, running around, roaming the town. You reduce that stuff. Huh? And retire early and get up early. And you find that you're very much invigorated. You feel great strength. Now you might say, well, maybe I'm missing out on some social life, I'm not there where the action is. Well, it all depends what you consider action, Because what is night for the transcendentalist is daytime for the materialist. Like, I was in London, Soho Temple, and when we get up in the morning at 3:30, people, they go home at that time. We get up, they go to sleep, and vice versa. It's like day and night, continuously. So, what do we consider desirable? What is my value structure? What is important to me? That has to be assessed. That has to be taken into consideration. Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now is the time to inquire about spiritual practice. And we can see in the life of the Goswamis and Haridas Thakur, because they had such a great taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna, their material wants and needs were very much reduced. They had a lot of time for spiritual practice. Manda sumanda mataya manda bhagyu padukta. People are very slow and backwards when it comes to spiritual life. You ask them, are you doing something? Yeah, I'm going to temple once a month. Yeah, I'm doing. But what are you doing for your body? Oh, 24/7, full-time service. But your body, your senses, has never given you a break, has never told you, my dear friend, today's your day off. You don't need to serve me. Okay? You've been a good boy, you've been a good girl. Today's your day off. Has your body, has your mind ever told you that? Today's holiday. You can go and do whatever you like. No. I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to eat this, I want to do that. Continuously nagging. But we're not gaining any satisfaction from this. So, spiritual life means to focus on the essence. And what is the essence? The essence is Krishna. The essence is the source, where everything is coming from. Therefore, Ishopanishad teaches us, Ishavasamidam sarvam yat kinchat yat jagat tena tyaktena bunjita magridaha kasasviddanam. This is the Ishavasya principle. That we only accept what is actually necessary for our life, and we try to offer whatever it is that we can offer. And in this way, there will be harmony. Nowadays in the world we have so much imbalance. Because few people have a lot, and a lot of people have very little. And it creates a big imbalance. Creates inequality and a lot of disturbance. And in our own life, when our own lives are disbalanced, then what happens? Disease gets created. So, Bhagavad-Gita teaches us how to be balanced. And for that, we need to combine our lives with Krishna. By worshipping Krishna on a daily basis, when you're in touch with Krishna, because Krishna is the balancer, He is the one who can balance everything. When we're in touch with Krishna, then our lives also naturally become balanced and peaceful. But if we are in Rajagun or Tamagun, then we will continuously run, always on the move, always on the run. Now people may think that this is very advanced, this is very fashionable, this is a very proper life, but how can you enjoy life when you're on the run? Like you see sometimes, they advertise, these marathons and triathlons. You have seen sports people. They have to eat on the run. You have seen? They're jogging and on the run they take something. But there's no enjoyment there. Right? in the same way, on the go, people,
kun ihmisten koko ajan liikkuu.
they get 20 minutes, half hour, 40 minutes lunch break. They go to some cafeteria or to some corner shop, to some dhaba, and they just stuff their face and they run back to the job. There's no real enjoyment there. It's just put some gas in the tank and continue driving. But that's not quality of life. That's not how humans are supposed to eat. While standing at the side of the road with so many people watching. It's not. Ayurveda teaches this is the worst way how you can eat. Huh? You should sit down on the floor with likable association with people who are actually in a pleasing mindset and attitude. Light conversation. Huh? Or something pleasing like that. So these things are not known, and thus people create disease. So we can learn everything from Bhagavad-Gita. Sometimes people say, you devotees, you're impractical. You miss out on the real fun of life. You're escapist. You're aloof from the world. You're not real. Well, this verse today, it's pretty real. Krishna is speaking about eating, sleeping, recreation and work. That's pretty real. That's what everybody's doing all day long. But how are they doing it? Not in a very good way. Not in a way that's really giving joy or happiness. Why are people continuously going to doctors? Why do they need therapy? Why do they need pills? Uppers, downers, all-arounders. Pain pills, this medication, that medication. Because something's not working. And you ask anybody, my dear sir, my dear lady, how are you doing? And I don't mean financially. I mean, are you satisfied? Can you truly say that you have achieved the goal of your objectives? And most people will say, it's not happening. I'm not feeling it. I'm trying hard, I'm struggling, but the odds are against me. Now, of course, people create all kinds of philosophies of how you have to take the good with the bad, and you have to suffer a little, and then you can enjoy a little. And you work like a dog for 5-6 days, and then you have one day of enjoyment. And after 40 years of this, if you still happen to be alive when you're 65, you might get a pension. But most likely you'll die before that. Because it's better business if people die before they reach pension age. So, but an intelligent person does not accept these type of foolish ideas. Your quality of life is happening right now, right here. And if it's not happening right now, right here, it will never happen. Krishna consciousness empowers individuals to take charge of their own lives. To actually become a yogi means that you learn the art of saying thank you, but no thank you. You want to go for that party, that drinking and dancing stuff? You know, I was dancing already at 4:30 in the morning. I already had my share of dancing. So I'm not interested. We have here Mangal party at 4:30. Then we have Darshan party at 7:15. So many parties all day long. People, they looking for excuses just to get intoxicated and move around a bit. But that is not very satisfying. So to have meaningful relationships means satam prasanga mamavirya samvido bhavanti ritkarna sayana kata tajoshana dasho pavargavartmani shrada ratir bhaktir anukramishati. That to have these meaningful relationships, sat, means they have to be truthful. They have to be based on truth. It cannot be based on hypocrisy. That, oh, I don't like these people, but let's pretend I like them, because maybe I can get something out of them. That's hypocrisy. That's cheating mentality. So, satsang is important. It means we have to be honest. We have to be clear. What is my motive? Krishna has to be in the center. We're not coming here for any other purpose than to glorify Krishna. Bhakti pareshanubhava viraktiranyatrascha. Tushti pushti kshut. If you practice bhakti, it's like when you're eating. What happens when you're eating? Hunger goes away. The body is nourished. And you gain taste and happiness. In the same way, when you practice bhakti, bhakti paresh anubhav, you get a direct perception of God, of Krishna. Viraktir. Virakti means detachment. You get detached from the things of this world. You have less interest in all these material, mundane things. And tushti, pushti, kshut. You get satisfied. You get actual happiness. You feel actually content. Atma ramas chamunayo nirgrantam api rukrame kurvantim aitukim bhaktim itvam bhuta guno hari. Atma rama, to be satisfied in the self. Wouldn't that be nice? To become an Atma Rama? To be satisfied in yourself. That is only possible if we come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Can you imagine you're in a state of consciousness where you don't need anything external? You don't need any stimulation. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to buy or eat or consume anything. You're there. You're in the zone. You're happy in Krishna consciousness. That can save you a lot of expense and a lot of trouble. Because nowadays people are chasing happiness. But as Prahlad Maharaj is saying, the so-called solution creates a bigger problem than the original problem. We have a problem, we try to fix it, but the solution is creating a bigger problem than the initial problem. Just like people, they want to go places. So we've created this nice automobile and these highways. But now there's so much pollution, there's so much traffic, there's so much expense, and there's risk of dying every moment. Every year, countless people die in accidents. That would not happen if you would walk to places, or you would take a bullock cart or a horse. No. So we have created so many modern, innovative ways of how to die young. We're very advanced in our society. So Bhagavad-Gita is teaching us many things, but we need to study it under guidance. Otherwise, if we have a selective mind, we will only pick certain items and we'll leave out the others, and thus will again create imbalance. That's why we need proper guidance. We need proper guru. So, Hare Krishna. Any questions in this regard? Yes.
Prabhuji, as a side point, you mentioned this one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam about how bhakti is like it's compared to eating. So, what was meant by saying that you get direct perception of God?
What is meant by it means that just like when you eat food, nobody has to ask you, was it good? You had direct perception of the food by eating, right? The proof of the pudding is in the tasting. When you have guests at your house, you don't need to ask them, was it good? You just look at them. You know. Either it was good or it wasn't good. If people use their spoon and they went like... and there's a lot of talking going on, you know, then you know. Not very good. But if there's no talking and all you hear is the spoon on the plate scratching, you know, and people want more, then you know it's good. Nobody has to tell you when you're satisfied. You know yourself. In the same way, when you practice spiritual life, nobody has to tell you, and you don't have to tell anybody. That's why this whole social media and Facebook is totally for the birds. It's for the pigeons. Because if you're actually happy, I mean content, I mean blissful, I mean ecstatic. If you actually have something meaningful, do you need to write to others about it? Do you need to post pictures about it? No, you don't. Because your experience was full. Your experience was so good that you're satisfied. Even if nobody else knows about it, you're satisfied. But if I have the need to tell 5,000 people about what I just did, it means it wasn't that great. It wasn't really that satisfying. But I'm trying to get more satisfaction out of the experience of interacting with these people. So Krishna consciousness, as we mentioned earlier, is being a realist and actually living in the moment and finding satisfaction. Because you can only be satisfied in the moment. That moment is Krishna. Not the feedback or the things that you might get or the admiration from other people later on. Does that help? Other questions or points? How are we doing time-wise? What is the time?
3 minutes after 7.
3 minutes after 7.
7 to 3 minutes. How is that?
Any other points? We have time till the conch close. The offering is still going on. Any other topic? Any other queries? You're living here in Helsinki or are you just visiting?
Here for the work, official purpose.
How long?
This 1 month, by 7.
Training?
He's here for past 2 years.
Nice. So please come regularly. There's program every day of the week. On Sunday there is also a festival. Big activity. But we are here busy 4:30 morning till 9 o'clock night time every day of the week. But Sunday there is a special festival. But evening, whenever you have time, you can visit. Did you visit our new temple in Chennai? ISKCON temple? They just opened, they just inaugurated a big new temple there. So, thank you for your visit. Please come anytime you like. There is now some arti ceremony with kirtan, and later on there will be prasad. So you're welcome. You can come and bring your friends. Thank you for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhagavad-Gita ki, Gaur Premanandi.